Happy belated New Year. I'm Lorraine Zamora, president of Three Parks. You know that already. And welcome. I've been asked to let you know that this meeting is being recorded. Now, why you have to know that, I don't know, because you're here. But maybe you could spread the word to others and let them know that our meetings are recorded. And if you miss anything that you want to go back and capture once you're home, then you can go back and listen to the recording. So, tonight's meeting is the second in a series of the meetings that we're holding to hear the candidates who are running for office in our district. At our December 11th meeting, we heard from D.A. Alvin Bragg, who's running unopposed, I believe, right? On the Democratic line. Tonight, we're going to be hearing from candidates running for public advocate and city council. On January 22nd, 2 weeks from tonight, we'll hear candidates running for mayor. On February 12th, candidates for New York City Controller and Manhattan Borough President. And on February 19th, the last in the series, candidates for district leaders, judicial delegates, and judges. Teresa, I'm surprised. Will there be candidates for judges as well as district leaders?
We don't know yet. There might be a citywide civil court, but we won't know that just yet.
Okay, don't go away. So, tonight, each candidate will have a full total of 10 minutes. And they can each use that whatever way they like. They can talk for 10 minutes. They can talk for 5 minutes and have Q&A for 5. They can talk for 2 and have Q&A for 8. However they would like to manage their time is okay with us. I have a feeling you'd like some Q&A, but that's up to them. And Corinne Constantine is our timer. She will let the speaker know at 8 minutes that there's 2 minutes to go, whatever we're doing. And also, all of you speaking tonight, you can either speak from the lectern or we have a hand mic that you can use, your choice. You can sit down or you can stand up. You can have water or you could have not water. Do it at your own comfort level. Now, the two masterminds behind our endorsement meetings are Teresa Cantor and Dan Cohen, our district leaders. Please. And I am going to call on Teresa and Dan to provide some of the details that I haven't provided you with, and you'll know what I mean as soon as Teresa comes to the mic. Or are you coming up to the mic first? Teresa. Right, ladies first. Ladies first. Right.
All right. Lorraine has already told you this is our second endorsement meeting, and we'll continue to have those through February. And we will have our endorsement voting, both meetings in February. In order to be able to vote, you must be a paid-up member for 2025 at Three Parks. You must have attended a meeting in the last 6 months. And those of you who are new members that have joined since last October, we thank you so much. You will also be paid for 2025, okay? So we do hope that you join us because our endorsements have much more impact the more club members that we have that participate in the endorsements, the more effect we have on our candidates' campaigns. So we are going to start with the first candidate, and yes.
Could you explain when they'll be voting?
Yeah, February the 12th, we'll have our first endorsement vote, and that will cover
Everyone
everyone, city council, public advocate, mayor, and district attorney, okay? So that will be on February the 8th. And then on February the 19th, we will have endorsement voting for the mayoral candidates. And by the way, we have at least 6 that are confirmed for our mayoral forum. We will vote on Manhattan Borough President, Controller, also judicial delegates. They will be nominated on February the 8th. We will vote on them on the 19th. And also district leaders, which would be Dan and me. Okay, so.
Hi, everybody. So, Dan Cohen. I just wanted to check in. I know we have some new people in the room. If you've never been to a Three Parks meeting before, can you raise your hand? Is one of you named Micah? Yes. Where? Where are you? Hi. Where? Show me. Here. Welcome. Okay. And everybody else, too, who is not named Micah, you're also welcome. Why are we doing this now? Because the primary used to be in September. So we had a lot of time to lead up to our endorsements, usually in April, May, June. Now the primary is in June, so we're going to start everything earlier. So I know it's January. Why are we talking about elections for this year? But primaries in June, general elections in November. We got to move things along. So I appreciate your being here and your patience, and we're now going to get started. Yes, and petitioning starts in...
So February 25th it starts, so we have to have all of our endorsements done on the 19th to have those petitions ready.
We're a duet. We take this on the road. Okay, so Corinne, who is sitting up front, has the time cards, and she will show the candidates. Corinne, if you could show the candidates the cards. It says time up. You can turn it around so everybody else can see it. Oh, it's on both sides. And then there's also a time says you have 2 minutes remaining, and then you have 1 minute remaining. She is a fierce timekeeper. Do not mess with her. So we are now going to have the candidates for public advocate. I'd like to invite the public advocate, Jumaane Williams, to please join us to say a few words. Thank you.
Peace and blessing, love and light, everyone. Thank you, Madam President, Dan, Teresa, all the district leaders and state committee people who are here. As mentioned, my name is Jumaane Williams, and I'm your public advocate. Thank you for previous support that I've received, and I know even when I didn't, it was a very friendly space, so I appreciate that as well. As you know, if you haven't been paying attention, we are on a, what's up, Sean? Councilmember, we are in some pretty interesting times in our city, in our state, in our country. And I know a lot of us are concerned about what's going to come. But one, I think I'm trying to spread the messages of we got it. We've been here before, and I think we'll make it through, but we'll make it through if we do it together. And as public advocate, I've been doing whatever I can, really pushing on issues. And I'm going to speak, I'm part of the Democratic Party. They have frustrated me a lot of times, and I think some of them are misreading what happened in the elections. I don't think that the electorate wants Democrats to go more right. They just want them to listen to what people were saying. A lot of the issues that people were talking about, like affordability and public safety, many of us were talking about, and myself included, and we should have just leaned into it. And so it is messages that I have talked about every time I've run, what public safety means, what affordability is, and how that's attached to public safety, access to certain things. I am proud that as public advocate, we've passed more pieces of legislation than all of the other public advocates combined. We've really tried to find a space that we can make sure folks understand what this office is. During the protests and the pandemic, we were out there a lot trying to make sure that we can make some of the things that were going on as constructive as possible. We want to make sure that we have people's voice constructive. Right now, we have a mayor that is woefully disappointing. And so we've been using our office as much as possible to push back on what's happening there. Frankly, trying our best to push back on some of the worst things that I think that the governor has been doing. And we have a president that's coming in that, as you might suspect, we're going to have some people who, one, quite frankly, you have to work with whoever's there, but who are going to stand up when it is time to stand up to protect the people who need the most protections. I don't think that will be the current mayor, so I'm hoping that we'll have another mayor. But in any case, if we have a mayor that needs to be pushed and controlled, I want to make sure that we do that in our office as well. As you may know, we have 5 basic duties according to the Constitution. You can introduce legislation. You're an ombudsman, the go-between between the people and the city. You're a charter cop, making sure that the charter is, the agencies are meeting their charter mandated duties. You get to appoint people to commissions like the CCRB and the City Planning Commission, and you have a vote on the pension board. So we've been exercising as much of those as possible. The 6th is not in the city charter. It's the bully pulpit. And I've been using that as much as possible to really lift up issues that I think need to be lifted up. But I'm really hoping to get your support again for re-election as we go into those perilous times. I think I've been one of the more consistent folks on what I believe and trying to really push those issues. We had some really tough votes in the city council, and I'm thankful that you had the support of Councilmember Abreu and Councilmember Brewer on some tough votes when our mayor was frankly just lying about what was going on. But I'll pause there, and I love questions, so I'm happy to take any questions that folks may have.
Yes, hi.
Hello.
I'm sorry. My name is Maxine DeSetter. I voted for you at one time. Anyhow, I was down at the meeting for Priscilla's Law at the City Council, and it seems that after Idanis Rodriguez spoke for a very long time against the law, Priscilla's Law we're advocating for the licensing and registration of e-bikes, which happen to go as fast as mopeds, which is like Class C, and we're perplexed why they aren't licensed and registered. But what I have to say is about 60 of us spoke, but most of the politicians there, including yourself, left and did not hear.
Respectfully, if you get to a question.
Yes, so I'm still asking why this is going on, that you would not support a law that would make it much more safe for us to find out who sped, why somebody got killed, but we can't even identify them.
Yeah, so thank you for that. Just to be clear, my position right now is I'd like to see what the final language is of it. What I did express is a lot of concerns that I've seen. So I'm all, all about safety. Sometimes we do things in the name of safety that don't have that impact, but can have another impact. So what my office did is research where this is happening in other places, and what we found is the places that have put it in play are actually repealing them. And so we want to figure out why they're repealing them.
Place, and it didn't have the impact of making people safe. And we feel like it could have an additional impact of people that we want to make sure, particularly with the incoming administration, or more out in the open. What they might do is just bring their bikes inside at a time when we're worried about fires that are happening. And so I'm not opposed to it in theory, but I want to make sure that it can be executed. And it seems that all of the money that's being spent to put into that, if it was actually put into infrastructure, would actually make it safer as well. So I want to hear what the final language is. And what I also said, which is true, I want everyone to be safe, and people have died from some of these collisions. There are more people who have died during car vehicle violence. So what frustrated me is, and not you, but there's a lot of folks that are so adamant about dealing with the licensure, but when we try to address the vehicular violence, they push back on that. And so I just want to make sure we're all on the same page that the violence that's occurring should be focused on. And we already have licensing, which we should, and for drivers, it hasn't necessarily prevented the violence from occurring and people being killed. And so all I want to do is make sure that whatever we're putting in place does the thing that we say it's going to do and doesn't have unintended consequences. So what I like to do is actually research what's happening, because sometimes it sounds really good and I understand why it does, but when you peel it back, it has other questions that need to be answered. So I'm waiting to hear what the final language is going to be and how they want to plan to implement it.
Yes, I'd like to know where you stand on the mayor's plan to revoke New York City retirees' Medicare benefits and put them into a disadvantage program.
So I've been supportive of the retirees on that from day one, and so I'm glad that we're winning that battle. Hopefully, we continue to win it. It seems pretty appalling that you cut a deal and then try to retract it. And so I have been concerned about it, and I've been supportive of the retirees.
Conducting the study on the vehicular violence versus the mopeds. So you're basically saying you have to do the research, but in the meantime, people are walking across the streets, getting hit. They may not die, but they can have injuries that lead to death. Like, how long will your research take in matters of solving that issue?
To be clear, there are things that we can do right now. So I don't want to. It is not shown that this bill will make people safer. So I'm interested in how to make people safer. What I've also found is, and I am depending where I am is who I am angry at. So when I'm driving, I'm very upset at the cyclists and the pedestrians. When I'm on my bicycle, which I ride a lot, I'm very mad at the drivers and the pedestrians. And when I'm walking, I'm pissed at the drivers and the cyclists. And so I know that this sometimes changes depending what point of view that you're on. So there are things that we have put forward that have been rejected that we do know works. I do want to make sure there's enforcement. So we're not trying to push back on enforcement that occurs. But I don't know that the licensure gets to what we want. So sometimes we put things forward to say that we're doing something on the issue, but then people actually aren't safer, and we've actually created some other problems, like people, not keeping their bikes outside, not charging them outside because they're worried about what the enforcement is and what that enforcement is going to look like. So right now, bicycle tickets for riding on a bicycle actually happens more in black and brown communities than in white communities. I've seen white people ride bikes, so I know that they do, and I've seen that they do it on the bicycle as well. So those are all on the sidewalk as well. Those are all the things that we're juggling. So I'm not opposed to the bill. I just want to make sure the questions are answered, because what I've seen is elected officials push a lot of things based on our real fears about what's going on that don't make us safer and cause more problems. So I'm just trying to make sure that those questions are answered. And we've pushed forward a lengthy solutions of what we can do, and some of them are being neglected, and I don't know why they're neglecting it while they're pushing this.
James, I'm a lifelong Upper West Side resident. I'm talking to you about a recent incident that took place on December 9th in upstate New York, in Marcy Correctional Facility. Now, I wanted to know, what do you feel, what's your stance on that event that took place with Robert Brooks, and do you support an anti-black hate crime bill? You see my time.
I've stopped watching these videos for my own sanity. So I didn't watch those videos. I actually haven't watched George Floyd video, but I hear and get a readout of what occurred, and is simply appalling. I am more concerned about the people who have been talking about this for a long time, that there are no videos. So what I do know is that this has been occurring and is occurring, and our leaders have not done anything about it. I do know that instances of this type of behavior has happened at Rikers, which is one of the reasons that we did try to address the solitary issues that are going on at Rikers, because it hasn't made anybody safer. And again, we put things forward that don't make people safer. And we get folks back home that have not been rehabilitated in any real fashion. And so I'm one of the proponents of really kind of rearranging how we address the criminal legal system in a way that is really about trying to get folks to be safer. That's not what's happening here. And unfortunately, we have the mayor and others that push misleading information. So if you speak to folks about bail reform, they'll really believe that it is bail reform that has caused some of the things that we're seeing, when we're actually seeing this all over the country, and it has nothing to do with our bail, and all the studies show that. And so I'm a person who really try to get to the heart of what's happening. There was a problem with our legal justice system, and that problem is primarily on the backs of black and brown folks, and we know that, and we see that all over. So I'm appalled by it. It frustrates me that the governor and others will respond to this video, but there's a whole lot of other things that are going on from the community that Mr. Brooks came from and from that jail. So this is a very huge problem that we have the resources to address and we have the infrastructure to address, but we tend to, when we're afraid, lean on simple incarceral solutions. And so right now we're trying to arrest the children of the people we arrested 20 years ago, thinking that that's going to make everybody safer again, and it just doesn't. And that doesn't mean that law enforcement don't have a role to play, but there's so many other things that are not being done. And then we put folks behind bars, and out of sight, out of mind, and this happens. And so I'm very concerned, not just for that video. That particular facility, people who are detained there have been complaining about this for a very long time. They have been dismissed. Yes, correct. This is what I'm saying. Yes, that is correct. Now, I've heard about the bill. What exactly does it do? Oh, yeah. Well, why would I not support that? That sounds like a... I don't know about the bill. I've heard about it. It sounds like something that makes a lot of sense to me. It sounds... I'm hearing it from what you said. Yes, if there's something else that I don't know about, then I have to learn about it. But what you said sounds perfect sense to me. Anti-blackness is a real thing. And I talk about it all the time, and it's pervasive all over, and it's been pervasive from the beginning of this country. So anything I can do to push back against that, I try to do that. But I do know, and I'll end with this, that everybody, I think every community is doing the best they can and wants to see, they want to live in a safer place, and they want to feel safe. Sometimes they're two different things. They want to eat good food, and they want to be able to afford a place where they live, and they want their children to do better than that. I've seen that in every single community. There are particular barriers that prevent that in some communities, and I think my job is to find out what that barrier is and try to bring that down, and that looks different in different places, and also understanding the seat that I'm holding is not more important than the people I'm representing, and I've really tried to lead in that way, and I'm going to continue to try to lead that if I get your support and get reelected. This is really, really important times, and I'm worried that we have the wrong executives in office, and so we do have to have people that are going to stand up when our executives are not. Thank you very much. I really appreciate it.
We have another candidate for public advocate, Marty Dolan. Mr. Dolan most recently was a candidate for Congress against Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez in 2024 and is now a candidate for public advocate in 2025. Mr. Dolan, welcome. The floor is yours. Yeah.
Can you hear me? All right, we'll try this one. And if you want to pass these out, you can. Just a quick introduction. My name is Marty Dolan. I'm a lifelong New Yorker, and I have been probably one of the leading voices in the Democratic Party against this leftward lean towards socialism, which I define as, just make it simple, gardening instead of forestry. So I'll talk for my minutes, and then we'll get to the Q&A. So, all right, up here. Got it like that. So my college thesis was one why New York City went broke. I lived through that like a number of you did too. We're coming into a situation where you're going to have President Musk and President Ramaswamy, who control $120 billion out of New York City's and New York State's combined $350 billion budget. And we're going to go into some a new political environment. Okay? We survive because of the support that we get from the federal government. And we have a wasteful city government that has the highest taxes in the world. At the highest income levels, you pay 14% of your tax. You work 1 day a week for the privilege of living in New York City. And if you just go by what's happened in the last 5 years, it's been a disaster. So you can't ride the subway. The schools are terrible. And you have incidents like the one up at Marcy, where correctional officers doing a basic job decide that they're going to beat somebody until they're dead. This is what it looks like when you have low standards. So what I'm running for is the idea that we have to get back to basics. We have to get back into providing an infrastructure for New York's families to excel as they choose to excel. Okay? I call New York's 8 million people 8 million CEOs. You're here because you want to live in the best city in the world. You're here making complex decisions every day about your family, about your kids, about your relatives, about your jobs. And you're here, you're not in Philadelphia, you're not in Baltimore, you're not in Springfield, Illinois. You're here because you want to test yourself against the best environment in the world. And the city has not done its part. The city has not delivered even functional subways, even functional schools, even functional jails. They get an F grade from me on practically everything they've done, and they've done it with the highest taxes in the world. So I think it's pretty simple. I give Public Advocate Williams a lot of credit. I give the Democratic Party a lot of credit for standing for diversity, equity, and inclusion. It's the second paragraph of the Declaration of Independence, that all men are created equal. And unfortunately, the left has taken that to the extreme, where that includes repeat criminals, that includes people from China who come to Venezuela and walk here, and they haven't put our citizens first. So what I want to do is get the city government focused on having higher standards that support our families with basic infrastructure. I'm happy to take any questions. Right here.
Thank you for coming. Mr. Williams has been our public advocate for a number of years now. I'd like to know, sorry, am I okay? Okay. I'd like to know what you would do differently than Mr. Williams has done. Please be specific.
Yeah, I spoke on the radio about this, which is I give Public Advocate Williams a lot of credit for advocating for minority rights. But I think he's missed the overall picture. I think the basic quality of life for New Yorkers has deteriorated disastrously during the last 5 years. So we have to advocate equally for, it's a city of 8 million people. And besides that, we have an international reputation to consider. So we have people in Korea, we have people in Japan, we have people in Europe making capital investment decisions about whether they want to come to New York City. They're not coming to New York City if people are getting set on fire in the subway. Families aren't going to settle in New York City if the school system is as bad as it is. So specifically what I would do is I would get back to basics. I would just look at the basic functions of the city. I wouldn't study what's happening in the bike lanes. I would put cops in the bike lanes. Okay? I would sit down with the unions and try to figure out what we can do with the curriculum and the teachers to make the school system better. I think the problems that have gone on in New York have gone on for 5 years and beyond that, longer, and they have to be fixed very quickly. You're running the meeting. This is all available on my website, too, if you want to look at it.
Well, thank you for coming. Could you tell us a little bit about your background? What have you done to date?
Yeah, sure. So I mentioned the bankruptcy of New York. I studied the bankruptcy of New York in college. And everybody who's old enough to remember that knows that it was solved by an investment banker named Felix Rohatyn. And that sent me off into, excuse me? It was with union money.
But
no,
what have you done in all your years?
I have worked for 40 years trying to solve the most complex problems in the world for big companies. So for example, there was a liability crisis in the United States where people were getting sued for a cup of coffee that spilled over, and I helped fix that. When the planes went into the World Trade Center, I found the money to rebuild the World Trade Center. And when we had the global financial crisis, I was one of the bankers who helped straighten that out. And I'm currently an investor in a facial recognition company that I hope is going to be very helpful for all of us in the future.
Thank you. I have one other little question. What's your position on class size in the public schools?
I think you have to do everything better in the public schools, and that starts at home. And it starts, I tell everybody the story about what happened to me when I was 10 years old. When I was 10 years old, I was a little kid, and my 5th grade social studies teacher got a hold of me and he said, "You're going to be a runner. You're a little kid, you can run." And that was I was like, okay, I didn't know any better. But I came from a community that was oriented on getting kids college ready. And that's the problem in New York, which is technology is coming to flatten wages. That's the #1 thing in the world. It's hunting for jobs. If it finds a $100,000 a year job, it tries to get rid of it or tries to make it a $50,000 a year job. So if you think about it, the $60 an hour job, and we're running kids through the school system so that they can do DoorDash. It's already a disaster, but it's just going to get worse because it's harder and harder. When the kids used to go to school, they could go down and work at the shipyard, or they could go work at the Steinway, piano factory. Now they can't even do that. So we have a school system that's producing people that are going to go earn minimum wage or not be college ready. And we have technology that's hunting jobs. So I think you have to look at the curriculum. You have to sit down with New York State to do something about that. You have to sit down with the unions and figure out what to do. Class sizes should be smaller. We should restore the programs that were taken away. And instead of spending $6 billion on illegal immigrants, we should put that money into the school system. Not at all. I'm a lifelong Democrat.
Yeah, I would like to know, what is your position on immigration regulations? Because you mentioned about Japan, Korea, and according to my experience working at attorneys' offices, we often have Koreans hiding in America for 19 years, and they get very mad once we were trying to do our best to help them. They hide for 19 years, they're not worried, but when we were trying to help them, they get very mad and almost break our attorney's glass table. And also, there are also some, so my question is, there are also some Japanese married Korean women for green card, and yet doesn't really like our community that much. But anyway, my question is, at the very beginning, what do you think about our immigration regulation reform?
Okay, so I'm the son of a legal immigrant. I'm a first-generation American, and I grew up in what I call an upside-down family. So when you're the son of an immigrant, your dad doesn't know anything about the country. So when I told him when I was 12 years old that I was going to McDonald's, he said, "Well, say hello to Mr. McDonald when you get there." I mean, he didn't know anything about baseball. He didn't know anything. So I think you need a very strict and high-quality immigration protocol. It's very simple. We should have a lottery for master's students. We should figure out how many people we want here and where they're coming from, and then we should stick to that. And we definitely shouldn't be allowing people coming from all over the world to take benefits in the district that I ran in the South Bronx and in parts of Queens. They're the neediest parts of New York City. And you had 2 cops getting shot by illegal immigrants. Time is up. All right, my pleasure.
Okay, now turning to City Council, the 6th District. We have Sean Abreu. 7th District, sorry. 6th is going to take a seat. 7th District, we have Sean Abreu, Councilmember Sean Abreu. Thank you, Sean. Welcome.
Happy birthday to Sean. It's his birthday today.
Good evening, everybody. Well, good evening, everybody. I want to thank 3 Parks for having me. Only 3 Parks is capable of getting me out on a tie for my birthday, so I want to thank you for that. I'm so grateful for all of you inviting me here tonight. I have to say, it's always a privilege to be among friends and people who are so deeply committed to this neighborhood, to this city, and to our shared future. For those of you who don't know me, I represent Council District 7, which runs from 92nd Street on the west side up to 165th Street in Washington Heights. I grew up on 161st Street in Washington Heights until I was about 10 years old. And that's when my mom got a job at Zabar's, where she still works today, and an apartment on the Upper West Side, where both my parents still live. I went to Columbia for undergrad and went to Tulane Law School. Yeah, maybe had too much fun down in New Orleans, I know. And then I became a tenants' rights attorney, helping keep families in their homes. And then I took over Mark Levine, who is now the borough president, for the city council. I always like to talk a little bit about my background because it reminds me why I ran for the council in the first place. I wanted to make big changes, to look out for my neighbors, to look out for the neighbors I grew up with, and my family. And while I'm proud of everything that we have accomplished so far, I'm even more excited about the work ahead. Let me start with housing. It's not just a policy issue for me, it's very personal. My family was evicted from our home when I was a child, and that experience shaped my understanding of what it feels like to live on the brink. And it's why housing has been at the core of my work. I'm proudly a member of the Housing Committee, the Land Use Committee, and the Zoning Committee in the City Council that has produced very important projects for our city. Just a few weeks ago, I was the decisive 4-3 vote that passed City of Yes, that's going to yield 80,000 new units in our city for affordable housing and $5 billion. That $5 billion is going to be dedicated to our infrastructure, like our schools, like our parks, and our sewers. I co-led legislation. I was number 2 on the bill. Real estate, REBNY did not want it, but we passed a bill that's going to end unforced broker fees once and for all. That's a big deal. You sometimes need $10,000 out of pocket just to get an apartment. Sometimes $15,000 or $20,000. First month's rent, security deposit, and a broker's fee. That is untenable, and we did something about that. In our district alone, we have preserved 1,000 units of affordable units. That's a big deal. We have used tools available to us, HPD Article 11s, that has kept apartments affordable. We've also strengthened the right to counsel law. If you're a tenant 200% above the federal poverty line, you're entitled to an attorney as a matter of law. But the truth is, so many families are not getting access to that because legal services are severely underfunded. You know what I did? I led a campaign to make sure that we secured not only the $100 million that was already existed, but $20 million in additional so that families facing eviction have access to an attorney. For me, that's very personal. Being a tenant in housing court, defending families like my own who were evicted in housing court was the honor of my life. Beyond housing, I'm proudly the chair of the Sanitation Committee of the City Council. Over the last year, you may have noticed all the corners in our district are replaced. We replaced all of our old wire litter baskets with better bins. These are rodent-proof. The street landscape feels cleaner. We're going to start seeing less rats as a result. I'm sure many of you are also aware that we restored community composting. I know just how important community composting is for this neighborhood. The mayor defunded it. We restored 6.6 million. We did not only secure initial funding, we expanded it. So now we're going to see more locations for scrap drop-offs. We're going to start seeing the processing of that infrastructure as well. For instance, we saved forgetting the area where we saved the composting infrastructure, but we saved that in the budget as well. And importantly, perhaps most importantly, I worked with the sanitation commissioner to making sure that black bags belong in our bins. Crazy to think. The trash bags don't belong on the street, they belong in our bins. In my district in West Harlem, for instance, we have seen a reduction of rat sightings by 60%. We're gonna make that go citywide. I have sponsored legislation that's gonna containerize trash for our entire city. Let's talk about the kids. My stepdaughter goes to school right down the street on 93rd Street, so I get a first hand of what our kids are doing. That's why I fought hard to expand after-school programs and summer school programs to provide safe, enriching opportunities for our kids. I was held back in the 4th grade for failing the state reading exam. But because of exceptional teachers that got me back on track, and after-school programs, my high school guidance counselor is actually my chief of staff. She's right here in the back. It speaks to just how important our education system is. I fought hard to invest in our school infrastructure, so that kids can have an auditorium for school plays, and so they can have gyms so they can play basketball at. Example, I brought $2.2 million to the PS 165 building on 109th Street, the building I attended school for, in fact, to make sure that we do upgrades for their auditoriums, for their gym, and their playgrounds. This year, I've actually worked with Dan Cohen. I'm gonna be funding the bleachers at Booker T so that our kids can enjoy the games peacefully and be in an environment where they can see their other families play. And I'm also, in this year's budget, gonna fight hard to redo the playground at Joan of Arc School on 93rd Street. It's something that the community has been asking for, and I'm confident I can deliver on that. Finally, I'm working to make sure that we have a safe, comfortable space that we can all enjoy together. I've brought $17 million to Morningside Park. That level of funding has not seen in Morningside Park in decades, and we were able to do that in our first year. First 2 years of your fact checking. $1.4 million we secured in this past year's budget for synthetic turf replacement on 103rd Street so that our kids, our young ones, can enjoy playing soccer. I brought $3.5 million to a Frederick Douglass playground on 100th Street in Amsterdam so that our kids can also enjoy that playground, and our young families who are moving here. And finally, I also brought in this past year's budget $3 million for Happy Warrior Playground on 97th and 98th Street on Amsterdam. This past year's budget, we brought over $100,000 as well for tree guards. I know how much the West Side loves tree guards, and in the last 3 years, we've secured $18 million for the Children's Museum to move to 96th Street and Central Park West. That's gonna be a huge opportunity for our young ones as well. These are investments in spaces that have been neglected for too long and bringing our communities together in the most important ways. And I would also like to end by saying, so far, I've received endorsements from Congressman Nadler, Assemblymember Mike Lasher, State Senator Brad Hoylman, Borough President Mark Levine, Assemblymember Linda Rosenthal, and you heard it here first. Tomorrow, Jumaane Williams will be endorsing my race. This coalition that we've been forming has been because of the hard work that we've been doing from the West Side up to Washington Heights. This coalition that we're building is going to be one that's going to continue to deliver for working families, addressing the affordability crisis, and so that the neighborhoods that we know continue to be authentic and so that our families can continue to live here. I'm happy to take any questions. Danielle Gerard, how are you?
Thank you, Councilmember Abreu. Sean. I have two questions. The first one is, as you know, Three Parks worked really hard to downzone the neighborhood to prevent the building of buildings like the Extel buildings. It's our understanding that you're still an applicant on two 25-story buildings between 109th and 110th on Broadway. So we'd like to know, are you going to pull that application, please? And then the other question is, do you and your fellow council members have plans to fight back against Mayor Adams when he starts inviting ICE into hospitals, schools, and shelters to push the recent new New Yorkers out of the city?
Well, I'll start with your second question. I have to, I'll tell you, in the fall, I called on the mayor to resign, and as a council member, I've stood up to the mayor at every opportunity. When the mayor didn't want to pass the banning of solitary confinement, we vetoed him in the council. When the mayor wanted to stop the expansion of housing vouchers so that families can transition from shelters to families, a very important, sensible thing, we overrode his veto. I mean, there have been many opportunities that we will continue to stand against him. And yes, of course, ICE, our police department should not be coordinating with ICE. Our immigrant community is super important to me. Having this being a sanctuary city is also vitally important, and we need to protect that at all possible. And I don't think this mayor ought to be reelected. In fact, I am not supporting his reelection. I'm excited about the other candidates. Let's see what they have to offer for the Upper West Side. With respect to your first question, I remain an applicant, and I am looking at all the tools available in terms of seeing what would make the most sense. With the City of Yes passing, there's the possibility that we know that we're going to see more housing opportunities in our neighborhood, so I'm going to go back to the drawing board and see what we can do there. I do know that the Department of City Planning does not want to move forward on the application because they don't like they don't believe that this creates enough housing opportunity. So it's a conversation that's ongoing, and once I have a final decision on what we're going to do with the application, I'll make sure to let you know. I have dinner with my partner tonight, so I have to run for my birthday dinner already. Thank you all.
Thank you, Sean. So now we're going to our next candidate for City Council in the 7th, who is joining as a challenger, and that is Idafi Okporo.
Thank you, everybody. Good evening. Thank you, three-pack independent Democrats, for your commitment to our democracy. My name is Idafi Okporo. I'm the Executive Director of Refuge America. I'm a community organizer, a member of three-pack, and I'm actually running to be the first former asylum seeker on the New York City Council. When I moved to New York City, I rented my first apartment on West 100th Street. This was right when I started dating my now husband, Nicholas. And I remember vividly, distinctively, my first experience at West 95th Street, the New York Sport Club. I saw a gay couple having a conversation about picking up their kid from daycare. And for me, it really felt like the dream I had of living openly as a gay man was possible for me. 9 years ago, I fled my home country, Nigeria, where I was attacked for organizing for access to health care for gay men. When I arrived at the border of the United States seeking asylum, I was detained for 6 months. My very first friend in America was a woman named Lillian. She and members of Riverside Church would come to the detention center in New Jersey to visit people seeking asylum. This was actually my first connection to Upper West Side and Morningside Heights. When I first moved to New York City, I was homeless. And for 3 months, I saw the difficulty and how immigrants can move through the crack of New York City and actually fall to the bottom of the packing order. So I created New York City First Shelter for asylum seekers at St. Mary's Church on 126th Street. I remember Desta, an asylum seeker from Guyana, who we actually brought from New York City Rescue Shelter System. And with the support of the shelter, he got his EMT degree, and during the height of the pandemic, he was actually supporting New Yorkers. The shelter represented the best of the Upper West Side and the best of New York City. And I remember this experience fondly because it taught me one thing, that if we come together as a community, we can actually help people find their food. In 2021, I remember when I was tapped by the Biden administration to work on Operation Allies Welcome, which will help resettle 550,000 Afghanis that came to the United States. Both at RODJ and Operation Allies Welcome, we helped newcomers found a sense of home and belonging. To me, the promise of community and building a better life is the promise of New York and the promise of America. Increasingly, it seems and it feels like the dream of New Yorkers, both old and new, is becoming unattainable. And increasingly, the city and our country is blaming new arrivals for the problem. This is why I am running for city council, because we need a council member who is willing to stand up to party leaders and fight for bold, progressive policies that will actually make our city more affordable and livable for everyone. There is a clear choice for city council. I have always believed in standing up to the establishment when the time is right. While others may play it safe and keep the peace, I am committed to bold and real progressive changes. I will start by addressing our need for personal safety and to feel a sense of safety in our community. We want everyone to have that sense of belonging. But recently, we have seen cases of violent crimes and people being hit by e-bikes. I do have a community safety platform on my website, and I shared an information with all of you, which detailed how we are going to address this issue. Because I think about community safety from an individual perspective and not just throwing cops at community. Our district faces an affordability crisis. 1 in 5 residents live in poverty. Many people cannot afford to stay in New York City anymore. In 2023, we only built 87 new affordable units in District 7. Like the new luxury development that was approved on West 135th Street isn't going to solve our affordability crisis. Luxury buildings do not increase the density of the city. It actually reduces the density of New York. We need to massively invest in social programs that have worked, like neighborhood pillars and next door. We need to increase investment in cooperatives like HDFC and Michelle Lama, which have proven to work. Our city leaders have already been trying to enact part of Project 2025 plan by moving 250,000 NYC retirees to a Medicare Advantage cost-cutting plan. The city, for over a year, have a bill that will actually codify healthcare for retired city workers, and our city leaders are refusing to stand up against union leaders and party leaders. There are other common sense bills that drastically will increase quality of life in our districts, and I want to address just a few. Developing a first responder model to addressing crime is a common sense legislation. Police should be dealing with high violent crimes, not when someone is experiencing a mental health issue. It has been proven in other cities, in Denver, in Oregon. We can actually do it. 988 is a line that is available when someone is experiencing mental health issue. Rather than calling the police, it's actually costing us more to settle police violence cases than actually addressing it with mobile intensive unit vans and health practitioners that know how to deal with these issues. Providing meals to older adults every day of the year is common sense. Department for the Aging, DEFTA, is currently underfunded. 1.8 million New Yorkers 65 and above, just equivalent to the city of Pennsylvania, Philadelphia, the sixth largest city in America. And our city council representative is refusing to fund the services they need. Providing universal childcare is common sense. Many middle-class families can no longer afford to live in New York City. We call these progressive ideas. The city currently is forecasting a surplus of $3.5 billion. We can pay for these services to enable families can afford to live in New York City. If we believe that government can work for people and government can solve our biggest problem, we need to show the people that we believe that these solutions can work. In our neighborhood, parents are being forced when their children are relocated from schools and they don't have a representative that speaks on behalf of them. Food vendor license, 10,000 backlog by the Department of Sanitation, no oversight from the city council. I love this community, and we deserve a council person. You deserve a council person that will fight for the right policies because they are a true public servant. U.S. House Representative Ayanna Pressley said, the people closest to the pain should be closest to the power. Your trust in me will never be taken for granted. If choosing to be your council person, I will fight for the right policies at City Council. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you very much, Adafe. And, I think I would like to give you the opportunity to answer the question. You're a first-time political candidate, and I wonder how you address concerns about your lack of political experience in running for this seat.
Thank you so much, Eli. You know from experience. This is my first time running for political office, but I am not new to politics. I have been working to pass Dignity Not Detention Act. It's a bill in New York State that will sever New York State's tie to private prisons. I was detained at Elizabeth Detention Center in New Jersey. And within 5 years of being in America, through advocacy and a coalition we built, the state of New Jersey have severed its ties with private prison. And by 2028, the state of New Jersey will not be in a relationship with private prison. Running for public office have taught me one thing, that it doesn't matter your background or where you came from. What matters most is your willingness to fight for the people and to actually show compassion. One of the biggest issues we have had in District 7 is that our council person refuses to show up when the community needs them. And that is something I have done consistently. I volunteer for food pantry. I have led an organization of 8 that provide shelter for asylum seekers in New York City. I've worked with the Biden administration to resettle 55,000 Afghan refugees across the 50 states. I do think bringing those experiences from different fields I have had into the city government will actually be beneficial and be best for our city. Don't forget, I'm an activist. I lost the right to live in my country, fighting for access to healthcare. I'm bringing activism to City Hall to actually change policies that needed to be changed, having the backbone to do so. Because I'm a newcomer, that is an advantage I have. I am not beholden to any politician, to any political party. I'm actually beholden to the constituents that are going to elect me. Look at our campaign. We have gotten 465 donations from individual donors, giving us $10, $25. We qualified for matching fund from the city of New York. People actually believe in us, so I'm going to represent them.
Thank you, Adele. You
have to speak.
Give me this. Sorry. Thank you, Adafi. You have said something that Councilman Abreu should learn. Think globally, act locally. all right? And I want to ask you, and I know that you can answer this because, Abreu ran from me when I tried to ask him, would you support Intro 1096 that will protect our elders, their Medicare? It will protect them from having Medicare privatized. Very important. Would you do that?
Thank you very much for that question. Today, I was proud to receive the endorsement from NYC Organization of Public Service Retirees as the chosen candidate because of my commitment to protecting health care for retired city workers. I and my husband recently were trying to look for insurance from the New York State Insurance Platform. I was speaking with Lorraine earlier today. She was telling me about Medicaid and how difficult it is to receive health care. Health care is a big issue for all New Yorkers. No one should try to allow people on fixed income to have to think, should I pay for my health care or my rent? So I'm going to protect health care for retired city workers. Thank you for the opportunity.
Okay, we've heard from two candidates for the 7th. We now have a candidate for the 6th, Gail Brewer, who is being challenged by nobody, I think, because she's unopposed. Gail Brewer, who doesn't know Gail Brewer? Who represented the 6th and then was borough president and now represents the 6th again. Gail Brewer, thank you for coming.
Thank you very much. I'm a bit of an interloper because I don't really have any part of this wonderful club, but I just love Three Parks, so I really appreciate the honor to be here tonight. I just want to tell you good stories. So I'm very spacey. I'm coming up. I'm reading the newspaper on the train. I'm not paying attention. And of course, when I left, I didn't realize I left my ID and my credit card on the floor in the subway. This wonderful person, Gail! And he almost got his hand cut off from the closing door as he handed me my ID and my credit card. New Yorkers are wonderful, so I just want to make that clear. So it's been a busy year. I want to just talk about some of the things that hopefully are of interest to you that have been positive. I think the issue with I've kind of become the smoke shop closer, and so, but we have closed 93 between 54th Street and 108th Street, and there are 2 or 3 legal ones. But it has been really a challenge because I think that the way that it came about was wrong. Hopefully young people are not being fed the opportunity to be right next to a school and get cannabis. So that's number one. Second, I don't even dare mention the word e-bikes, but let me just tell you a couple of things. One is the issue of the batteries. I hope has been, I think some of the bills that I passed and others have passed give police, fire, consumer affairs the opportunity to go to some of these shops. And there's something called Pop Wheels, which hopefully you'll be able to, like a vending machine, go get a battery and then get put yours in and get a new one out. It's really frightening, as are the pedicabs. And we spent a lot of time in the park, and we're now spending time in Midtown with the wonderful folks at the Midtown Court. If you haven't seen that wonderful court, you should see. They get most of the summonses from those pedicabs and e-bikes. So they're trying to figure out what to do in all cases. These are some of the quality of life issues that are new to our city, but have not been addressed appropriately. I also want to mention mental health on the street, because we just met, I went to Queens and met with Be Heard. That is emergency EMS, emergency medical services, and social workers going out in Harlem and in Queens in particular, trying to figure out how you get somebody off the street and somewhere safe. And interestingly enough, you hear all this, you'll hear the mayor tomorrow, I don't want to say anything until the speech is given, but one of the topics is going to be he's going to get people off the street. I've been hearing this for a while. And I understand Goddard and others that have to talk to people. I feel very strongly about this. I know there are social workers here. But there's no place for people to go. And so one of the issues that I learned, and some of you may know, there's a place run by Project Renewal in East Harlem, 11 beds for men, 3 for women, 100% 24-hour psychiatric, OT, meaning occupational therapy, and nursing care. That's what we need in the communities in order to address these issues. And when you take people, they want single rooms. They want to be in a large shelter. So these are the issues. Instead of just talking about we have to get people off the street and out of the subways, when I was coming up tonight, I'm sure you saw this, I saw 4 people sleeping on the platforms with blankets because it's so damn cold outside. No place to go. So I just want to say, when you hear this, get people off the street, please remember they have to have a place to go. I want to just talk also about the environmental issues. There are so many, global and local, but we did pass a bill which I'm say, Riverside Park, you rock, because their model for composting is what we passed in the city council. So all parks are going to have to be a few years to go, but they all need to be composting so that they keep their own compost material and put it back into the park. So Riverside Park is really the model in so many different ways. And in terms of Riverside Park, perhaps I'm most proud last year with the mayor, we got $63 million to renovate the Soldiers and Sailors Monument at 89th Street. And we all go there on Memorial Day. You're all welcome at 10 o'clock. It's my favorite war memorial, perhaps my favorite memorial. Please feel free to join us. I want to just mention also, in terms of resolutions, we have to get the Farm Bill in Washington. I think Albany, hopefully this year, will increase the SCREE and DREE to make it compatible with those that are thinking about consumer price index. Because right now, $50,000 is not enough. People make more money. They need to have their rent frozen. Guess what? It's the #1 priority for the housing committees in Albany this year. I want to just mention that we passed a resolution about Landing Day, which is the second day in September to commemorate the arrival of the first Jewish community in New York. Very important to me. The committee that I head up, which is Oversight and Investigations, if you have ideas, let us know. But this committee focuses on contracts at the moment. You know that some of them are way over what they should be, particularly for the migrant community, the issue of marshals and what the Department of Investigation does, ambulance response times, sort of all the challenges that are in our midst, and how investigators and attorneys, because there are 8 of them, can do, which is very different than the other committees. In terms of housing, we don't have very much. I want to say to the city, for God's sake, you can't talk out of both sides of your mouth. There are lots of single-room occupancies, particularly as the migrants start to leave, that can be purchased. So don't tell me it's too expensive. It's too expensive to keep people in shelters. So in this community, if you hear about an empty SRO, make the city purchase it and get a nonprofit to run it. There are actually 3 in my district right now. Huge! One of them with 1,000 rooms, ready to go. But the city always says it's too expensive. No, it's not too expensive. And if you want to build housing, it's right there. So I just want to push for this community, because it's hard to build new housing. We're going to try, ABC is leaving in the 60s, as you probably know, 67th Street, going downtown. What a hell of a job I have to try to turn that into some affordable housing. But that's an example of a fight. Not even money, just a fight. But the issue of the SROs is something that we should push. And I also want to mention I'm very much of a preservationist. So we're fighting to keep West Park Presbyterian Church. The Presbytery wants to turn it down and make condos. It's a wonderful cultural center if you haven't seen it, and you should feel free to participate in their amazing activities. In terms of public safety, I want to just say you have to do what Be Heard is doing. We need social workers, we need peer-to-peer, and we need, obviously, EMS to work. Police, if necessary. But the mental health issues have got to be dealt with, and they have to have places for individuals to go. I just want to emphasize that. In terms of the schools, just like my colleague, I want to make sure that the funding, I give a lot of money to playgrounds and schools and so on, but with the migrants, I really want to give credit to the Department of Education. They have incorporated those wonderful students. They deserve a clap, the Department of Education. They really do. They have made sure that those families and this community, the West Side, has a whole group of parents, some of you may be part of it, that work with JCC, the synagogues, and the churches to make sure that between its clothing and food, that those families have what they need. These families want, and we want them to stay in New York City. What a crazy idea it is for the mayor not to work to keep them in New York City. So what we do is, if a family has to move because of the 60-day rule, we fight like hell to keep them in Manhattan so that kids can stay in schools in District 3 or District 2. We had to stop a bus once to Queens. I personally stopped a bus when it was taking a family to Queens to make sure that family stays in our community. I also just want to mention I had one local issue. I got in a lot of trouble. PS 145 right here is growing due to excellent leadership. And West Side Prep was going to be upset about moving, but they moved it to Ascension, to the school, and I got in hell, as you probably heard, for suggesting it. Everybody's happy now. So I feel good about that situation. Finally, participatory budgeting is happening right now from March 29th to April 6th. You can vote as to which projects you want to be funded. In the back is our newsletter. We have a free tour of the Metropolitan Museum. Please sign up. You get the entire museum to yourself for one day. And there are a lot of other activities that we're doing. And thank you very much, 3 Parks. That's our newsletter. Hi.
We're about to have another charter revision commission. The mayor has, this is like spring cleaning. We rewrite the charter every year. This one seems focused on housing. It seems to not be stacked with his friends and cronies. I'm excited that it's Richard Beery, a former deputy mayor, in whom we have a lot of respect. Anyway, what's your comment about the latest Charter Revision Commission?
Well, it continues. I mean, I did a Charter Revision Commission when I was in the borough president with Tish James. And that was a balance of controller, borough president, city council, and the mayor making appointments. It's not cronies like the last one, but it's still 100% of the mayor's people. And so when you start these charter revision commissions, I don't know that they're going to have a whole lot more participation. They only had 794 people in the last charter revision commission, and everything ended up on the ballot, as you know. 5 different suggestions. Most of them passed because people don't know, research-wise, what they're going to vote for, as you know. So I don't know what they're going to come up with. I will be participating in the hearings. But when you have these charter revision commissions, they don't have to stick to housing. They can do anything they want in terms of changes. So I think it needs a lot of attention. I think it'll have the same lack of participation as the last one. Richard Berry is terrific, I agree. But even the first meeting, nobody really knew about, as an example. So we're now paying much more attention. So I'll take a positive attitude. I'm not hopeful.
No.
So just as a reminder, thank you for bearing with us. We have 2 meetings this month. Our next meeting is on the 22nd. 22nd. It is the mayoral forum. We have 6 candidates for mayor, so I hope you'll join us. They are, let's see if I can do them from memory. No, here we go.
Scott Stringer, Brad Lander,
Zoran
Mamdani, Zellner Myrie, Jessica Ramos, and Michael Blake have confirmed so far. We have invited Mayor Adams, but we haven't heard back.
Yes, a question.
And the matching that the city does 8 times. So if someone makes a small donation of like $25 right now, it goes into this quarter's matching fund, and it actually generates $225 for the candidate. So it's a really good week to think about supporting people. It means a lot to the candidates to have early money. So think about it, and if you're torn between 2 candidates, give to both of them.
If you would like to donate, you can go to NYCCFB, which is the Campaign Finance Board, and as our speaker just said, it's 8-to-1 match. Every dollar gets matched up to $8. I think it's up to, depends on what office you're running for, up to $250 gets matched, and so that's times 8 is so $250 becomes $2,025 if it's matchable. If you're all feeling very generous about your candidates and want to donate $250, who'd like to donate $250 tonight? Do we see $250? $250. I feel like an auctioneer. Any other questions of a political? Yes, over here. Can't. If you can't be here for the voting, you can't vote. There's no proxies. So sorry. So sorry. Yep, you have to be here to vote. Yep. Change your plans. Cancel your vacation. Yes, in the back. Thank you. Thank you. Again, so 175. Do I see 175? 175. Going once? Thank you. Anybody else? Indeed. You're correct. If you're running for a higher office. Anything else? Okay, it's cold. Stay warm.
Remind you that if you haven't joined the club, we're still in the back.
Yes.
And we'd be delighted
to have you as a member.
Introduced for 2025.
Thank you so much. We'll see you in 2 weeks at the Mayoral Forum.